live. Yeah, we going live. Hey, we going live. Yeah, we going live. Yeah, we going. Yeah, we going. Yeah, we going live. From the 50-yard line, we going live. From the 50-yard line, we going live. From the 50-yard line. Hey.
All right, so Stephanie, I think before we started, we explained to you a little bit about who's really right. So just to go over it a little bit again, who's really right is kind of the debate segment of this show. And so Stephanie and I are usually on the opposite ends of an argument. Today we have two. And so you're going to weigh in and give your take on both of these.
Okay.
So our first who's really right is, will Black coaches be shut out of all coaching hires?
Okay.
Step, you gotta go first.
Why?
It's a setup.
No, listen,
it's a setup.
I'm gonna tell you that.
Why?
Step, I'm gonna tell you why you gotta go first.
Why?
Because I have no idea what side of the argument I was on for this one. No,
so you must have won. That's what it's saying. You must have won.
No, Stephanie always wins.
You don't know the record.
I win
Stephanie. Most of them. So.
I say.
But in this situation, this is so hard to have this conversation. Will Black coaches be shut out? We only got one job left.
Mm-hmm.
And thus far, I'm going to say what I see thus far is we've hired in the NFL, not we. The NFL has hired 2 white coaches coming from the collegiate level.
Mm-hmm.
And they have pretty much, some of these teams have hired people who weren't even coordinators for, even if they were coordinators, they weren't coordinators for more than maybe 2 years at the most, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have an Eric Bieniemy, Pop, Todd Bowles,
mm-hmm.
Byron Leftwich, all of these people which was crazy because last Sunday, we watched 2 games where 4 of those people were in those games as either offensive or defensive coordinators.
Right.
But historically, what we've seen is that it is a good old boy kind of the relationships that are formed, because unlike other sports, the NFL, it is so owner heavy, top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have so much more power to make decisions about what happens. And because of that, they have essentially pacified us with the Rooney Rule.
Right.
But are not taking the coaches who are qualified seriously because their skin doesn't look like theirs, and they're not their friends, and they're not people in their circle. And so because you're not in my circle, I'm not going to consider you for real. I'm going to check the box by interviewing you, but I'm not going to take you seriously. So to answer the question, I do not believe with that one opening we have left that we will see an African-American coach. I don't.
So it feels like we were on the same side of this argument, right?
But you brought up something really good.
Right.
Do you remember?
So I got breaking news too. So the thing that I brought up was I felt like the Texans were going to hold on to that opening until the Super Bowl was over and then bring in Eric Bieniemy, because they did request to interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
But as of yesterday, it seems, the Houston Texans have hired a coach.
Oh, they did hire a coach.
Yes. David Culley, who was, I believe, a wide receivers coach for the Baltimore Ravens, is the new Houston Texans head coach. Now, I'm going to tell you, and looking at his picture, I wouldn't have guessed that he was a black man.
He is black?
But apparently, he's black.
Oh. We'll see. No, so that's again, I mean, I'm glad for him.
Right.
I'm glad for, I'm going to say that I'm glad for him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost, the funny thing is, when I sent you that text about the GM for the Lions, I believe it is.
Yes.
And then you said, have you seen I Am Athlete and so what I fear is, why would you go get a wide receivers coach when you've got these coordinators who have proven? Because that's the way it goes, right? You position coach, then you become a coordinator, then you get a head coach. That's what they've told us, right?
That's what they told us.
That's the ladder that you got to climb in order to get a head coaching job, right? Mm-hmm. That's the ladder, they said.
Right.
So it almost feels, and I'm not knocking this dude because I don't know him,
mm-hmm.
but it's like you went out to pick somebody that you knew would not succeed.
Right. Well, you know that place.
And to please Deshaun to keep him there, but that ain't finna happen.
Nah,
because we know Deshaun Watson said, "Listen."
He said today, "Nah, trade me. I'm requesting the trade. I'm formally."
Yeah, because you thought you were pacifying me, just bringing in somebody because they were black, but no, you needed to go and get one of these guys.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I feel. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be quiet because I want Stephanie to have time to talk.
Yeah, I was just about to go to Stephanie because the breaking news, you know what I'm saying, kind of jumps in there. But Stephanie, I want to hear your take on the hiring practices of the NFL when it comes to head coaching jobs. Actually, when it comes to all levels of, upper level of management in the NFL.
So I can't go into the level of detail that you all can, because that's where my paying attention kind of stops.
Yeah.
In terms of people's names, how long they've been a coach, what position what type of coach they work for. But what I will say is, coming out of 2020, there are going to be I think to expect the residual of what it was like prior to the reckonings of 2020, right?
Okay.
Like what we saw happening and people calling out corporations, people calling out these major corporations, people calling out team leagues, the Black vocal voice is going to be much louder and much more present in these boardrooms. I think we've come to a reckoning point where there are going to be people in these rooms that are willing to speak up more now. So I think what we're going to see first is, of course, the residual of this good old boy system. It's going to follow through. They're going to do what they've been doing. But I think as 2020 continues and we go into 2022 and the other positions open up, at these lower levels, those levels are going to be, of course, where they make those changes happen first. Because again, these are industries where those type of faces make money for a reason. That system has to get cracked a little bit deeper before we actually see real big change. Now, however, I hope, and this is the thing that I think is the psychological piece of this, is that we as Black people have to pay attention to where change is happening. And not get stuck in the place of, well, here we go again. We have to see the shifts as major, because there have been shifts and there are shifts happening. These companies and these organizations don't have to listen. They still are in a position where they don't have to listen. But if you noticed, paying attention to advertising right now, this Super Bowl is going to be the most diverse advertising we've ever seen in history of the Super Bowl. Watch. We've already started to see it since Christmas. Those are the type of changes, because that representation that we need to have present and see at a psychological level, we have to pay attention to the little things first. And we have to make those little things big things. We have to say to each other within our groups, like, you see what's happening over there, what company is doing so and so, let's make our company do the same thing. Let's make our organization pay attention to that company and see how they're growing from that type of change. See how that's going to make a difference for their audience who's coming to those games and paying for those games. If we as citizens, just like we want the government to do it, we got to hold these organizations and these other entities accountable just the same. So yeah, we're going to see this residual happen of the same old same. But I think there's going to be a greater sense of cognition and cognizance to how this process works now, because they know they will get called out. And they won't just get called out by the audiences, the supporters of these teams. They're going to get called out by their friends who have decided to shift their relationships and their money as a result of 2020 and this political election, which is always in the background of these type of decisions. All of that makes a difference in how these companies move. And these are companies that depend on stocks. These people depend on how their money grows. When you have companies saying we're no longer backing certain people by name in the media, they start to listen differently. Their perception starts to get a little bit more aware that it's real how much money you can lose in a quarter if you don't pay attention to how this game should be played now. So I think
that's real. My team doesn't have a name anymore, and that's a testament to that. Washington football team, they had to change.
Yeah.
So I agree with you in part, but I think one of the things that has to happen is there are 32 NFL teams. There are only 2 out of those 32 teams. There are only 2 non-white owners. And I think until we see diversity in ownership, diversity at the head, I think that you'll see the waves of this, right? You'll see we may have 7 head coaches who are Black. But then you'll go back and then it'll be 1 or 2, and until we see some diversity all the way at the top where the chief decision makers, because these guys are printing money, even with a lot of the backlash that some of them have received, viewership isn't down much. I mean, it's down from the standpoint of, Corona and, the effects of that. But even with people being upset with what happened to Colin Kaepernick, viewership didn't dip because of that.
No, not to where it could get felt in the pocket. No.
Right. So I think the diversity definitely needs to be seen at the top. And so Step, you mentioned this about, we didn't get to get into it, and I'm gonna make this brief, but you mentioned this about the Detroit Lions. And so when you sent it to me, the reason why I asked you to watch I Am Athlete is because Hugh Jackson broke that down.
He did all the way.
I gotta watch this.
And so
yes, go watch.
The Detroit Lions, they hired, and what they said was that they already knew that Dan Campbell was going to be their coach, right? Now, usually you don't see a head coach being hired before GM. Dan Campbell was hired before the GM. And one of the things that Hugh Jackson said is, and I'm paraphrasing, how much pull does the GM have if you hired him after the head coach? And it makes it feel like the position is titular. Like he doesn't have real power. He's just the figurehead or the face, And so while it is a win from the standpoint of, okay, we have another Black GM. Is he just there?
3.
That makes 3. And so is 3. He just there? Is this just a fulfillment of the Rooney Rule?
But they all had the same circumstance.
They were hired after the
They were all hired after the coach.
Right.
Ron Rivera was hired before the Washington football team got their GM.
Right.
The Falcons hired the Tennessee Texans guy before they got their GM. And now the Lions got their coach before they got their GM.
Yeah.
So this happened in all three cases.
Sounds systematic.
Yeah.
Sounds like a systematic play. What's the new? I would be paying attention then to what the behind the scenes starts to shift and become. Whether that's an interesting systematic shift to have for a major organization that wields so much power and money. Shifts like that type of pattern of behavior change, that's what I pay attention to. Like something is amiss. What is it? Why are we shifting in this way? And are we, and why make the statement of they're just figureheads? Well, so is the president of the United States, but it matters if you're Black.
Yeah.
Was the vice president, but it matters if she's different from all of the 45 that came before her. Like, where we are. No. So it's an interesting shift, and you make note of, and what kind of practices then does that mean from a cultural from a sports culture perspective when it comes to who you seek for your GMs? Because I hear you that that culture shift, you're right, doesn't happen until that leader of that team at that level looks different from the consistent, viewing. But why change it when you start to make that type of shift? Why change that system? That's the question that I'm curious about now that you brought that up, is what difference does that really make for the person of color that you might be hiring? And what does their status have to be? Hire them, because you may not be hiring the same type of status when in that person as you have in the previous.
Right.
I do think that this is one of those, that level of change is just kind of like changing our government officials to get out the predominant group that have made these type of decisions against the diversity of this country and its reality of diversity, means that there have to be some major lower level, upheavals in order to make those people shaking their boots and actually that's what happened. That happened last year. I think that's where we are. But that's
we're gonna see
points.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see. And let's briefly talk about this too then, because we haven't often seen that it's been someone who was non-Black who was quote unquote in trouble in the NFL. Yeah. We've seen it a couple of times with the kicker. I can't remember his name, that got in trouble. And now we're seeing it with the Seahawks just getting, what is his name, Jarrett?
Oh, Chad Wheeler.
Wheeler. And his domestic violence situation. The rapidness in which they have cut him shocked me. Because historically, we always talk about how sport mirrors the society that we live in, right? And we've watched how, and I'm not trying to be political, but we watched how the people who just acted a fool on the sixth are being released on their own recognizance time after time after time. Oh, please, or giving them, or I read something where one of these parents or one of these people was fussing with the people at the jail and like, make sure he gets a certain diet because he can't eat that stuff. He was on a hunger strike. So please give him, and they did it.
They're going to let him stay on his hunger strike after a couple of days.
Come on, you going to eat that slop as soon as you get too hungry. So
your strike gonna be
but that's just historically as a society, that's how it's been. And so sport mirrors that. And so I'm shocked that it wasn't we're going to do this investigation, we'll see what happens type of thing, that they just went straight for the jugular. Was surprising to me.
Here's the thing. I can't remember what year it started, but it was after I think it was due to, I can't remember the player's name, but the player that was caught on the elevator.
In the elevator, Ray Rice.
Beating his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Rice.
After that, one of the wives of one of the owners pressed her husband to start a domestic violence group and subsidiary organization within the NFL to deal.
Yeah.
So since then, a lot of these stories have not been hit in the media because the NFL has actually been sending them to that source first. So for this to hit the news media so quickly, it's kind of like they know they're being watched. These contracts around their mental health and they're serious. And I think this proves that they are serious about dealing with this. Now, the details behind it, what will actually happen in terms of his contract and whatever protects him, moving forward, I'm sure it's not going to look like Colin Kaepernick's situation. But the fact that they acted swiftly upholds the image, at least, of what that in-house internal process and resource is for. I'm hoping that she gets a benefit from that as well, that she is not left hanging to provide to get whatever care, whatever counseling, whatever medical bills after this, because I saw a picture, it was ridiculous. This has got to be what they do. They can't just cut them. They actually have to do something on the behalf of the victim, as well as, now here's the piece that a lot of people will balk at. Figure out what's going on with him.
That's it. Say that again. That's my thing all the time. Don't just drop it. We can't continue to treat
perpetrators like they're not human.
I'm
sorry, but
no, you're absolutely correct.
What I do is about human behavior, not white people, not black people.
Right.
All of us have this stuff.
Right.
Even when it comes down to the sexual predators, white racists, white supremacists, look.
It's stuff. That's right.
Have stuff going on. They're either following a group or they are doing only what they know how to do.
Right.
Behavior is not surprising or spontaneous. It comes from somewhere. And so if we don't start to take guys like him and rehabilitate them, figure out what the heck is going on that led to this in the first place, why that was such a quick thing and quick reaction for him, and support him through it, him and any other person who's ever been through it. That's the other piece, that we just can't cut people and say you're off the team or we're taking all your stuff. Okay, well then, of course, they're going to end up in a psych hospital or jail somewhere else later. They have to have something else. They have to actually be attended to. Yes. And this is the example that the younger people need to see, because this stuff is happening in high school.
It sure does. I've had it happen.
All of this is happening in high school. It's happening throughout college. So if these examples are not clearly set by the pros, what they all aspire to be a part of, then it's not going to mean anything. These groups and resources will only be, placeholders.
For sure.
No, they won't be actual facilitating the tools and the recovery that people need in order to actually be well. And that's something that an example of our society. It is our society. This country started off with a domestic violence reputation. We all been in a relationship with it, and we all been through its cycle of violence to some degree, and we all have contemplated escaping it, knowing what the cause or what the risk could be. But we can't keep going through this cycle. We have to do something to exit this cycle safely and then end the cycle. And that's at all levels, at a societal level, as well as within these entity levels. So I'm happy to come quick. That was actually news to me because I saw the article, but I had not seen the update that they had cut them. So
no, they released it.
Yeah, I didn't see that either. But one of the things you had mentioned something, well, both of you had mentioned about we need to see what's up with him or what's going on with him. One of the reports was that he is clinically bipolar, and he had not taken his medicine in some time. Which, you know, I don't know the depths of like how that works, and you know, but what's kind of the level of accountability for the athlete for not taking medicine that he knows that he needs?
Yeah.
And I guess maybe the organization making sure that he is on it and doing what he's supposed to.
Unfortunately, according to state laws, nobody can be forced to take their meds at 18 or over, and even younger than that. Certain situations and certain laws are in place that can mandate people take their medicine. Now, here's the thing. If he had been taking his medication and up until that day he was fine, even though he stopped taking it, we don't know how long that was. With the disorder, with bipolar disorder, depending on how long someone has been on their medication and how strict they are to their regimen, for some people who go off of that medication and they have had multiple relapses, for instance, where they start to have symptoms again, those symptoms show up close to when that medicine has not been taken. So typically between 2 to 3 weeks of people being off of that kind of medication, you start to see symptoms start back up. And these are the symptoms that impede daily life functioning. It makes it difficult for him to go to practice and be successful and be focused. And it depends on what type of bipolar he has. There's two types: bipolar 1, which is a manic type; bipolar 2, which is depressive type. So there are a lot of factors involved in whether or not someone takes their medication. Unfortunately, especially not a doctor, no one can say you got to be on your meds to play. It's actually against the rights that he has as an individual on a work as an employee for an employer to interfere with his health practice that way, because it borders and is in that very gray area of privacy. If he disclosed to them that this was his condition, that's on him.
Right.
It comes out some other way, then it comes out some other way. However, his employer is not privy to his health information. That is protected information.
HIPAA, right.
HIPAA information. So outside of those bounds, nobody can know. Now, here's the other piece that I have to say. Because you have bipolar disorder or any other severe mental illness diagnosis, one of the things that happens in our media is that when people act out in this kind of way or some other violent way or do a Kanye on us, and I say that with love and with empathy, that we then bring up their mental illness, which is unfair, because those two things are not mutually exclusive. Those things can happen whether you have an illness or not. Life and how people decide to behave is choice. So to bring up mental illness at a time where he's acted out violently continues the stigma message that these two things go together, that you have an illness, and so now people associate you with violence. That is actually the opposite of the statistics out there with people who have illness. And for the most part, people who have bipolar disorder, some people who have this disorder, and when they act out, they're typically not acting out towards other people. They act out towards self. So if we're going to say that he has mental illness and he was off of his medication, what does that really mean in this circumstance? What does that mean for the victim? What does that mean for the greater population who's listening and who's reading this and still associating mental illness with violence? Because that's not always the case. Yes, do people with mental illnesses do violent things? Yes. But so are the people who are out here undiagnosed and below the radar and under the threshold, who just have really poor impulse control and shoot people because they crossed them over in the highway. What's then that excuse? So we have to separate these things from people's experiences in life, because we can't continue. We're not helping him by saying, oh, Now we see that you have bipolar disorder. You need to be on your meds so you don't beat anybody up off the field.
Got it. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right. This conversation was so robust. I didn't want to interrupt or, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I got to steer us back to who's really right in our Super Bowl prediction.
Okay.
And then we'll transition to the next topic. But just quickly, who you guys got in the Super Bowl?
I'm scared to even say.
I'm not, because I feel like I gotta
who
pick.
You got, then?
I feel like I gotta pick the opposite of who I want to win, because
right,
because
he's lost. He's been doing horribly with this stuff.
Trash this entire offseason.
And watch his original pick win this time.
Right.
I'm gonna be so upset.
All right, who is it, Jarrett?
I'm picking the Bucks because I want the Chiefs to win.
Okay.
And I just can't go. Listen, I can't go that. Again, my same reasoning for picking the Chiefs last week is gonna be my pick. It's too much. It's too much offense.
Yeah,
and I don't care how good the Bucks defense is.
Yeah,
there are too many weapons. Too many weapons. I don't know how you stop all of that. I don't know know how you stop. The only thing that's holding them back is, and he's got 2 weeks to get better. So I feel like he'll be good. Patrick Mahomes clearly wasn't himself, running, because he has that toe injury. So, but I feel like he got 2 weeks. He'll be good by Super Bowl. So I don't think they can handle. The Bucks defense cannot handle all of that offense. I do not believe it.
No defense can.
All I'm gonna say is, I just want somebody other than Tom Brady to win.
Listen, Stephanie, I'm with you.
I don't
understand
whoever he sold his soul to, he could win as many times and be like, come on, man. Seriously?
I love it. Yes. Oh, that's perfect.
Nobody knows how to throw a ball in the last 2 quarters of a game like him, and win this type of luck. Like, who is he praying to? Who is he praying to? Because somebody else is on his side.
Right.
That voodoo
or somebody else. Hello. Come on, Tom. Reveal the secret.
Right.
Shoot. Somebody else needs that sauce.
Right.
Hey.
So 2 Chiefs and a Buck. Okay.
No. Oh, okay, yeah.
No. So it's actually 3 Chiefs, but I need to say the Bucks. So I don't.
Switcheroo.
I need to say the Bucks.
So like, whoever's leading in the 3rd quarter, that's who he gonna want to win.
Man.
Yeah.
Nah, but I really want the Chiefs
2 weeks,
and I'm gonna be very upset if
2 weeks.
Dude,
we're gonna see.
I was like, what? Tom Brady again?
I know.
Okay.
Like,
Tom.
Yeah. And then he beat my baby, so I'm really upset about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we won't go there.
Right.
I know.
You're right. We don't even need to recap last week. Let's just go ahead and go ahead on.
Woosah, breathe deep.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go, Jarrett. Get it out. Oh gosh. All right.
Now put the cameras on me, 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 put the cameras on me.